Welcome to Beyond the Bottom Line
with Anna Letitia Cook.
Good morning and welcome to Beyond the Bottom Line. Here today we've got Julie Schladitz, who's joining us from Switzerland. Julie's a business and career coach, an international HR consultant who previously worked for Gucci, INSEAD and the International Olympic Committee, so a real range of jobs and situations. Today we're talking about happiness revisited, and we're going to talk about its place, its form and its impact basically in and on all aspects of our lives. So welcome back to the show, Julie. It's great to have you.
Thanks very much for the invitation. Great to be here.
Okay, happiness is a really fashionable topic at the moment, but I think quite a lot of people really speak about it like it's the holy grail, but they're not really clear on what happiness is scientifically, as well as the sort of generally non-specific idea of it. And they're not really very aware of how it impacts us mentally and physically. I know you've gone into the science of this quite a lot. So can you give us more of an idea about the whole science around happiness?
Yeah, I think you said it very well. Happiness is a very vague term. It means a lot of things to a lot of people. We're all different. But what the science is, and how I have my Happiness Revisited course, is very much, it's not the Pollyanna approach to happiness that life should be absolutely full and happy at all times. Of course we have ups and downs in life. It is a roller coaster, but it's how you cope with those downs and cope with the ups that my course is about very much. So it's not just happiness, let's be happy at all costs.
Yeah.
It's very much more having this profound sense of well-being. And I'll go into the science as well, but I'll give you an example from last night. So I'm a football fan, love Aston Villa, have been an Aston Villa supporter for years and years and years and years. And yes, I was in Rotterdam when they won the European Cup. So it's really in my blood. And last night they went out against Manchester United in the third round of the FA Cup. Can I complain about a VAR decision? And I woke up this morning going, and that is the happiness, obviously, that I'm not talking about. Yeah. It's not the ups and downs. It's not my own happiness. It's not linked, to 11 players on a pitch and a VAR decision. Yeah. What we're talking about in Happiness Revisited is really a much deeper sense of well-being, so that when the Villa do lose and I'm unhappy, it's only going to be for a limited period of time. And I think also it is important to listen to your emotions. So these ups and downs are really important. And we don't want to be happy all the time. It's not good. It's not appropriate. You go to a funeral and you don't want a smile on your face.
Yes.
So this is very much what Happiness Revisited is about. How can you get that sense of well-being, that sense of happiness in your life, whilst experiencing all the emotions, of ups and downs? Yeah. And you talked about the scientific evidence. There's been the last 20 years. There's been so many experiments, research, studies gone on about how important happiness is to us. The very positive impact it has on our lives, even to the extent that it changes our brains, the neuroplasticity of our brains. It changes the way the brain works. And being happy in the studies has really shown that it makes us more caring, it makes us more generous, it makes us better citizens. So happiness itself doesn't just have this impact on ourselves. It really is important for the world, because if we have this deep sense of happiness, of well-being, the world is going to be a better place. And just one final part about the science, maybe there's a wonderful TED talk, I think it's Sarah Pressman, on how doctors should be concerned about our happiness. And in the TED talk she shows that they've done studies that even for a vaccination, if you're smiling, it hurts less.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be a genuine smile. And in this TED talk, which is amazing, I'd recommend you watch it, they're even suggesting put chopsticks in your mouth. So you're turning your lips. So if you're on a bad day, just put some chopsticks in your mouth or a pen or something. My children know that. It's like, just make this smile. And it does impact you as well.
Really?
It makes a difference. And to actually have those studies saying that it actually makes pain less. Exactly. Walk around for 10 minutes. And that's not me being, silly. It's scientific studies that show actually it has a major impact on our well-being, whether it's physical or mental. And so that's I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah, well, I think you should be, because it makes such a difference to everybody. I know I work with a lot of different countries, and some of them are more negative than others. And I find when you've got people who are always negative, always questioning, but negatively questioning, always criticizing, they just have so many problems. And psychologically, there seem to be far more of them going to the doctor for stress or depression or anxiety, or, they just seem not to manage everything. So I think it does make a big difference. But I know you're talking a lot about well-being. So would you say that happiness equates to well-being, or do they have differences? And if so, how can we combine both of them for a better effect on ourselves?
I mean, happiness, I gave the example of Aston Villa. I can give you the example of chocolate, for example.
I'm
a
don't.
chocoholic as well. Aston Villa and chocolate are my two passions. So if I have some chocolate, I'm really happy. If I then have a whole bar, I'm not happy. I start feeling sick.
Yeah, and you get shakes and everything.
You go out and buy a lovely pair of shoes, and wow, it makes you happy. 2 weeks later, well, I'll put them in the back of the cupboard.
Yes.
So that sort of happiness is not sustainable.
Yeah.
And if that's the sort of happiness we're looking for, we're just constantly going to go into this search. It's like, when are you ever rich enough? When are you ever famous enough? You'll never get there. So that type of happiness is how well-being fits into it.
Yep.
Because if you're looking very much more into well-being, into flourishing, that's a far more sustainable part of happiness.
Yep.
So that's what we should really look for. So it's a more long-lasting approach.
Yeah.
And actually, if I can give you a quote, I've printed 2 quotes out for you today. So this is one of my favorite quotes by Mathieu Ricard, talking very much about happiness. So allow me to read it. Think of happiness as a deep ocean. The surface may be choppy, but the bottom is always calm. Similarly, there are days when a deeply happy person may feel sad. For example, he sees people suffering, but underneath that sadness, there's a large depth of unwavering happiness. And I think that's very much the difference between happiness and well-being, in the sense it's sustainable.
Yes.
And that's very much Happiness Revisited, is we don't want, the 5 minutes of chocolate, or even Aston Villa winning the FA Cup. That might actually last more than 5 minutes, but we're looking for the sustainable part of happiness.
Yeah.
And that's where well-being fits in. Have I answered your question?
Yeah, very much so. Because I know you do get some people where, particularly now, it seems that they're pursuing happiness at all costs as the ideal. They think that they have to have perfect happiness. And the only thing they think about is the future goal of happiness. So do you think there's a more balanced and realistic objective that we can aim for, so that it's more practical? It's less this trying to push us to some unachievable dream, or just totally unrealistic dream. And if there is, how can we really aim for it, and how is it going to have a better overall impact on us and our lives? I mean, I'm very into this. This is why I'm so interested in this interview, and well-being and wellness is my big passion. So I think this is a major part of it that people are getting very confused about and not understanding what it really is.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. I have multiple questions there, but
sorry,
in that one sentence,
this is my typical thing.
Yeah. There's one word that really sticks out, and you said people are pursuing happiness.
Yeah.
And that is the wrong thing to do.
Yes.
We need to prioritize happiness, take happiness decisions that are going to prioritize it. If we pursue it, it's actually self-defeating.
Yes.
Because you're always comparing what you want with what you've got.
Yep.
So that very pursuing actually makes you unhappy.
Yep.
And again, I have my second quote. Can I get my piece of paper? I love this. So it says, happiness is like a butterfly. The more you chase it, the more it will evade you. But if you notice the other things around you, it will gently come and sit on your shoulder.
Oh, isn't that lovely?
Beautiful, isn't it? And that really is it. Don't pursue happiness.
Yeah.
Make happiness a priority without pursuing. And again, may I give you an example? Do you want to?
Yes, okay. Please. So, examples are good.
I was in London doing a course for 9 days, say 3 years ago. And of course, I've done all this. I've read all the research, the studies. I know that I have to make happiness prioritizing decisions, not happiness pursuing. And I was staying in a London hotel. And because the Congress was held there, they gave us all amazing rates.
Yeah.
But in there was breakfast included.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, there was like 800 people in the Congress. You go down to breakfast, you have to stand. I couldn't get a peppermint tea. I couldn't get served. And I'm going, this is just causing me so much stress.
Yeah.
I will go to reception and say, I don't want breakfast included. And I will just go and buy a pot of porridge and a banana and some mint tea and have it in my room.
Yeah.
And I went to reception. I said, sorry, this is absolutely ridiculous every morning. I don't want breakfast included anymore. Can you credit me the £20 per day? Because it was £20 for breakfast per day. Yeah. And they go, no, it's part of the thing. If you take it, you'll leave it. But we're not crediting you £20. It's part of your hotel bill. So I'm like, okay. And the decision was, do I get value for money and go and have my breakfast and have total stress?
Yeah.
Or do I go and buy a pot of porridge in the nearest supermarket with some peppermint tea and a banana, mix it all together, and have half an hour in my room, very quiet, enjoying it? And that was the decision I took.
Yes.
And if I hadn't understood the reality of prioritizing happiness, honestly, I'd have said, well, if I'm paying £20, I'm going to make sure I get that breakfast.
Yeah.
Was actually, it was so much better for me. I was so much happier in my room, listening to some music, having my pot of porridge. And that was a happiness prioritizing decision.
Yeah.
And that's why it is important. So to the very beginning of your question, the word pursue is no, prioritize, don't pursue.
Yes.
And I have to say, I've forgotten the rest of the question. You might have to ask it me again.
So basically, if it's, is there a more balanced and realistic objective so that it's going to have a better overall impact on our lives? And I think with the example you've given, it's the perfect answer.
Yeah. Okay.
Basically, because yes, we need to prioritize, we need to be realistic and think beyond, what's directly here to what's actually going to have the better response. So thinking about career, because obviously most you work with career people, professional people, me too. What way can we apply this positively to our career, particularly in view of the pandemic, when so many people now, they're completely reassessing their lives and jobs and thinking about, what is more important, because we've had a totally different vision now of what life can be like. So how would we apply this positively to our career?
I think there's two parts to that question. And the very first part is, yes, people are reassessing. They're assessing what's important in life. And going back to actually the definition of happiness, to make it more practical, it really is, let's link it to your values.
Yep.
Make sure you're living your values, that everything you're doing is in line with your values. there does seem to be, that's it, people are taking a step back. I see it in Switzerland. And when I talk to people abroad, they're telling me the same thing. People are taking decisions to leave jobs, to change their life. And that is very good. And I will give some examples of how we can do that. What I would just say, though, as a career coach, sometimes we obviously have a negativity bias in our brain. And so we always look at the negatives instead of the positives. And I think there's a positivity ratio where they say, I think it's Barbara Fredrickson that said, for one negative, you need 3 positives to actually make it balance it out. Yep. And in a relationship, it's 1 to 5. So, in a relationship, if somebody doesn't put the bins out or whatever, they're going to need 5 things exactly to actually get it to that. So, of course, we're reassessing everything, but just a word of caution: be aware of this negativity bias. Yep. And in any job, anyway, what we say, as career coaches, is you're never going to get the perfect job. Yep. If you get 70%, if you love 70% of what you're doing, it's already very good.
Yes.
So that's just the word of caution. But in this world now that we really are assessing what we want in life, what I would say is be very careful, that's it, with your well-being. And this is also one of my passions, is the stress caused at work. Yeah. We used to wear it as a badge of honor, going, I'm working very long hours, yes. I'm not sleeping enough, I'm not eating enough, I'm not spending time with my friends and family. That has a major impact on our well-being. Yeah. And I think when we, in the middle of this reassessment of what we need to do, just to be aware that, if you're eating absolute rubbish, that actually has an impact not only on your brain, but also, on your physical well-being, clearly.
Exactly.
Exactly. If you're not sleeping, that has an impact on your well-being automatically. Yep. If you're not spending time with family and friends, again, well-being is bad. In fact, they say the quality of your relationships is the number one factor of happiness.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be romantic relationships. It can just to make sure that you have those relationships. And in a work environment, many people work too long and then they really neglect the relationships. So, take a step back. Yeah. Make sure that you take the right decision for you and for your family, but also, that's it, prioritize your well-being. I think it really is key these days.
Yeah. I know with you talking about stress and people using it like a badge of honor and all of the long hours, I bore everybody rigid doing when I was young, but when I was young, and when I first started work, I started in the city, and the city is a high pressure place. Yeah. However, where I was, and I think at the time the generations thought the same way, the badge of success wasn't the stress and the long hours, it was the short hours and spending a couple of afternoons with clients on the golf course. And literally the managing director, you would never see him before 9:30 in the morning. Wow. Never. Yeah. And he would always be gone by 4 or 4:30, and he would always do a couple of afternoons or days per week on the golf course, because that's what success was. And because of that, we all went home early. If the bosses would say, you've done well, you've done your job, go home. And so we'd go home at 4, we'd go home at 4:30. Whereas now, everybody, they just work crazy hours, crazy. And I don't know why they think that, well, I do, because it's, influences and peer pressure and things like that. But it's so the wrong thing to do and the wrong thing to think. And because I'm into wellness and I've trained as a nutritionist and yoga teacher and things like that, one of the things that I find most important that people don't realize that you've mentioned is eating well. Yeah. If you eat rubbish, your brain's not going to work. Your body's not going to work. You need really healthy, fit nutrition so that your brain... Oh, my cat's come to say hello. As usual, he likes being in the videos. Oh. But you really need that, because when you've got healthy nutrition, it helps your emotion, it helps your energy, it helps your stamina, so you can work better, so you can be more efficient, etc., etc. It all goes together. So you mentioning that, I think it's so important people realize that, thinking about happiness. But I know I started asking about how we can apply this to our career. Another thing I find with a lot of countries that I work with and companies is the difference of opinion between whether the company should be responsible for integrating new things, new ways of working, or whether we individually should take responsibility for things ourselves. So what do you feel regarding happiness and well-being? How much should the companies do things or change things, and how much should we ourselves think, no, it's my job, I should do this?
I mean, I think we should always take responsibility for our own well-being. However, there is a trend, and I totally support it, that companies now, they're introducing, for example, chief well-being officers to look after it. And from a bottom line perspective, absolutely makes sense for the companies. Completely. There was a lovely study by MetLife where it was for their salespeople, and they said, let's take people who are happy and optimistic but less skilled, and then compare them with people who are less happy, less optimistic but highly skilled. And they did this study over 2 years. And I think the first year they outperformed, so the happy, optimistic, less skilled people outperformed, and I'm going to have to check my figures here, I think it's 21%. It is indeed 21%. And the second year by 57%.
Really?
Outperformed, yes. And this was in sales, so it was very quantitative, it was easy to quantify. And also they stayed longer, so employee engagement was higher. And it's come across in so many studies that taking care of your employees actually has this impact on the bottom line. And so it makes sense for them, even if they don't want to be altruistic and say, we want all our employees to be happy, just start looking at the impact it has. We know employee engagement, employee satisfaction, creativity. You want to be creative. Well, if they're unhappy, people are not, unhappy, stressed, burnout, you're not going to be creative. You're not going to think outside the box. You're not going to be collaborative either. It really makes sense for companies. And that also is another of my passion, together with chocolate and Aston Villa, is well-being in companies. That really, it's not just idealistic. They need to understand, A, the importance of employee health, but B, the impact it's going to have on their own bottom line.
Very much so. So what can we do? What can we put on our checklist to help ourselves to have a better vision and reactions regarding all of this? I think checklists are good.
I think first of all is to understand, be aware of stress in your life and how you can reduce it. Within the office environment, for example, this has happened to me many times. I'll get an email from somebody and I'll react immediately going, what on earth do they think they're doing? And send an email. Well, take a step back, think about it. And before you send that email, be aware and read it again, go for a walk, come back if you're angry. Very simple things also in the workplace is, so for example, mindfulness. It's a buzzword at the moment, but you can use it very simply. So if your phone rings, don't take it immediately. Let it ring for 3 rings. And just in those 3 rings, just breathe. And then take the phone. So just little tiny things like that, where you're making a cup of tea and just watch the kettle boil, for example, or something. Just take moments out of your life just to say, calm down. And for me, if anybody rings me and I don't wait 3 times, I'll pay them 10 francs or something, because it really is, for me, that's one thing that I really say, it has to be 3, just let it go. So things like that, you can really make a difference. so these are very, very small things, aren't they? But already that's going to make a difference, I think.
Yeah, definitely, because it just gives you that break to breathe.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
exactly.
yeah. Okay, so any final piece of wisdom or key strategy that you can give us to implement going forward?
Can I give you 3?
Feel free, yes.
So the first one I think is really important, is that we are naturally programmed to have malaise, to not feel so happy in midlife.
Yes.
So late 40s, early 50s, our body is just programmed to not quite be as happy as we were when we're younger or when we're older. So
very good. Right.
So we're talking about midlife crisis, aren't we?
Well, I'm older now, so I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm out of it as well, but it is very much so take that on board. So if all of a sudden said, I don't want everyone to change their lives in late 40s, 50s, and they go, oh well, actually I was pre-programmed for that. So I think that is number one.
Yeah.
The second thing, happiness. So positive events, negative events are unpredictable.
Yeah.
So if you think something is positive, actually it could turn out to be really bad.
Yeah.
And something that happens is bad actually might be the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah.
So sometimes to say, okay, don't judge some of these events.
Yes.
Because actually the bad might be really good. You might have gained so much and to get so much strength or so much so many ideas for the future, and it might be 10 years later.
Yep.
So happiness in the sense of don't judge things in the moment.
Yep.
And then the third thing very much is we are so goal oriented. But actually that can also have an impact on our happiness. Yeah. So it's very important to have goals, but enjoy the journey as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So don't just enjoy what you're getting out of it. Don't just strive to achieve it, because it might not be what you want. But if it's just take time and enjoy every moment.
Brilliant. Thank you, Julie. That is really interesting. The thing about midlife, I had no idea. I didn't know that. Very interesting. But no, but no, I think they're so important, those. So thank you very much for coming on the show. Thank you for all the valuable things that you've told us, the wisdom, the ideas, how we can approach the idea of happiness in a more balanced way. And I very much look forward to having you on again soon to do the next installment about Happiness Revisited.
Perfect. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure, and look forward to seeing you again soon then.
Lovely. Everybody, thank you for coming and listening and watching Julie Schladitz. Come back again for her next interview, which will be in a few weeks' time, and start putting into practice all the advice that she's given. You'll find a lot of links on the bottom of the page, which will be towards what she does, her quotes, everything that she advises. So don't hesitate to go onto those, and see you again next week. Bye, everybody.